Well, again, good morning for those of you in Philadelphia, good afternoon for those of you not in Philadelphia, and to the east of us. My name is Adam Zahn. I am the director of the Office of Global Engagement at Drexel, and I'm going to be talking to you today about developing a global classroom. Virtual exchange has become an emerging pedagogical method in international education. It is not a substitute for study abroad. A lot of people who are very engaged and in this area really see it as its own standalone method of internationalizing the curriculum and creating sort of a different type of global experience, global engagement experience that our students would normally have by doing a mobility program. So I'm going to speak real briefly on the Drexel approach to virtual exchange, and then I'm going to pass it off to a couple of our faculty here who have taught global classrooms, and they will give an overview of an example of their courses. And then what we'll do is go into breakout rooms so that you can ask really specific questions to our faculty and do some idea sharing and hopefully come up with some examples that you could possibly foresee using as a global classroom. Okay. So again, the agenda that I just explained. So we actually began the global classroom method, implementing it within the Office of Global Engagement about 8 years ago now. So this is way before COVID, the pandemic. Obviously was an opportunity to rethink using virtual exchange, but we've actually been doing virtual exchange for quite a long time, really with the goal of internationalizing, again, the curriculum and providing students with opportunities for international exchange right at home. These are co-developed and co-taught modules. And the idea here is that we're supporting 21st century workforce skills and providing opportunities for applied and I'd say authentic learning experiences. And obviously, a big part of the global classroom is providing an opportunity for intercultural and transnational learning, really helping students understand the perspectives of their discipline from a different cultural background, linguistic background, et cetera. So we've had over 3,500 Drexel students participate in a global classroom since 2013, 3,800 worldwide. What's great about the virtual exchange, at least especially for Drexel, is that there is no cost for this experience. Students receive credit from their own institution, so there's no exchange of credit. There's no need for sort of complex agreements with institutions most of the time. And it also has really supported new publications and research agenda related to global exchange. It's also helped spur the development of different faculty mobility programs as well. So there is that opportunity to think starting virtually and then evolving, I would say, the course to become something that is virtual and then mobile. You might often hear global classrooms outside of Drexel referred to either as virtual exchange or COIL, which stands for Collaborative Online International Learning, or telecollaboration. So there's a lot of different nomenclature for what we call global classrooms. And we'll go into a little bit about what it looks like now. So this graphic sort of helps sum up the idea of a global classroom. So again, Drexel faculty member is working with a colleague abroad at an institution outside of the United States. They're bringing their students together through technology within their specific courses. Again, Drexel students receive Drexel credit, and our students abroad receive students from their home institution. The important thing is that they're engaging in collaborative classes and activities. So this is not just simply guest lecturing in another course, although that might be part of the global classroom experience, is having faculty lecture, trading off the role of being a lecturer. It's really about ensuring our students are engaging in some sort of collaborative activity that helps them, again, understand the discipline outside of maybe their typical perspectives. At Drexel, we've had a variety of courses that had this global classroom method being used, from undergraduate and graduate classes, classes that are already online, classes that are in person. So we've been able to incorporate this in quite a few different types of learning environments. I already mentioned the ability for it to provide access and equity in international education and really help students, again, understanding that global perspective, It can help with career preparation and in terms of, again, understanding what it's like to collaborate in mixed teams with people from different backgrounds, supporting faculty research and collaboration. And an additional incentive for our faculty is the first time that a Drexel faculty member teaches a global classroom, they are eligible for a small stipend from our office course, as well as support from our office and from the instructional technology group at Drexel. So there's three different models of global classrooms. There's the asynchronous model, and this is when we are engaging in project-based learning through coursework that is really up to the students to schedule. So similar to a group project that you might assign for your traditional class, you're also assigning a group project for students where they have to mediate things like time zone differences. Maybe they're in discussion groups asynchronously, discussion boards, I should say. Maybe they're preparing a presentation together, but all of it is done outside of their traditionally scheduled course time. So that's an asynchronous model, which can be really useful, particularly for obviously time zones that make it really difficult to find overlapping agreed upon times for a synchronous experience. We do have synchronous global classrooms as well. It's generally best suited for European, South American, or West African time zones. Students are live together using virtual platforms just like we are today, such as Zoom, Blackboard Collaborate, or Google Hangout. Zoom has obviously become sort of the preferred method, I think, for a lot of universities for doing synchronous learning. So there might be, again, joint lectures, whole group discussions, breakout rooms, et cetera. So that's the synchronous model. And then a hybrid model blends asynchronous and synchronous modality. I would say most of our global classrooms have some sort of both synchronous and asynchronous component. So sometimes that first get together will be a synchronous session where faculty might be introducing the activity a little bit more, answering questions, doing some sort of icebreaker. The students are then assigned work to do, again, and they will work together in teams, just like they would normally in a group project, to schedule a time to complete their tasks, and then some sort of follow-on synchronous activity. So that tends to be the best, but there are certainly different models that work for different locations and different faculty and different courses. So before faculty engage in virtual exchange, I often ask them to think, first off, I ask them to think about what their personal teaching philosophy is. And if this was one of my longer workshops, I would actually do an activity where you would write that down and share. We're not going to do that today, but do think about sort of what is your personal teaching philosophy and your approach to pedagogy, because that can often help guide the development of a virtual exchange with your partner faculty member, is thinking about sort of where those values align in teaching. You also want to think about what existing course you teach best lends itself for that international perspective. So I would say 99% of our virtual exchanges are existing courses already. So they're not new courses that are developed just for virtual exchange, although they can be. But certainly administratively, it's easier to take a course that already exists. You're not changing the learning objectives, but you're enhancing them with this global perspective. So my next point here is to think about what course objectives best lend themselves for that collaboration. Some faculty engage in a multidisciplinary virtual exchange. So that might be a clinical course, let's say a clinical nursing course at Drexel, collaborating with a sociology of healthcare course at an international partner. So two different disciplines, nursing and sociology, with a sort of obvious overlap, and so developing a really interesting project that engages both that clinical side and the sociology side is sort of a really interesting option for students. Of course, you want to think about what locations best lend themselves for exploration. You might already have a partner that you work with with your research, or a colleague that you've worked with, and you are certainly welcome to work with that person. Certainly are welcome to seek an international partner through our office. But you might also think about, okay, where is the research in nanotechnology really, really popular right now? And that could be a way to also decide a location that would work best for your virtual exchange. Certainly what technologies would lend themselves best, and I'll get into a little bit about that in a second. And then the duration of the work. So I always tell faculty the first time they embark on a virtual exchange to aim for a 3 to 5 week synergy. And 3 weeks really being sort of a good starting point. And that's because certainly being a Drexel quarter school calendar can make it difficult sometimes to find that sweet spot to work with a semester school. And so starting off at 3 weeks usually works out really well in terms of a short-term engagement that still allows students to have that virtual exchange experience. So technology. So questions we often get from faculty is, can I use Drexel Learn for this? Or should I use Drexel Learn for this? Or what if the international partner wants to provide a learning management system? What else can we use? So you, your students, and our international participants can use our learning management software, Blackboard Learn. We do this through a cross-listing, and this is all done by the Instructional Technology Group, ITG at Drexel. They're very helpful with getting this done rather quickly. Basically, a cross-listed shell of the Drexel course is created for international users. Those students and faculty get their own accounts to log in to learn. And that allows our international students and partners to access the same course materials that our students can access. And you certainly also have the ability to decide sort of what is appropriate for access. So discussion boards, readings, things like that. Those might be things that you want to share. There might be something that is really only specifically for your Drexel students, and you can have that hidden from our international participants, for example. So this can be really useful sometimes because it creates one central location for all students to access materials. It's not mandatory. Many virtual exchanges don't use a learning management system. It might be just, here's the Zoom link that we're going to be using for our virtual exchange to log in, but it can be useful to, again, keep everything centralized. But partners might also have their own technology. So what I would suggest is certainly find out what technology platforms our partners use. I often see Canva as another, Canvas is another learning management software that's used. And if you decide to do something different than what our Drexel students are used to test it out ahead of time and work with ITG to develop materials for students. Gina, I saw you had your hand raised. Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I noticed in the last slide it said that the international instructors can't access Drexel Learn, but actually they can if we sign them up as a teaching assistant. And so then the international partner can go in and make changes and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that.
Makes things really helpful.
It does, yes, absolutely. And some notable outcomes. So really a lot of our virtual exchange faculty, and you'll hear from some of them today, continue to offer a global classroom or turn new courses into additional global classrooms. It's really been, I think, a positive experience for professional development for our faculty. And some of the assessment that we've done, students overwhelmingly, over 90% of students who complete these assessments that we send after the global classroom, believe a course has strengthened their team skills in multicultural groups, and believe it assists in the global understanding of their profession or of their discipline. And that's really the bigger picture here, is having that exchange. I mentioned faculty developing face-to-face travel components and are interested in exploring that as an add-on to a global classroom. And it certainly helped strengthen some of our existing partnerships and lay the foundations for new ones. So I will say quite confidently that Gina's collaboration with Politecnico di Milano has really helped strengthen that relationship with that institution in Italy, and is hopefully a springboard for other research that we'll be doing in other virtual exchanges. But it's also laid the foundation for new partners. So sometimes I will have a faculty member working with a school that we don't have an agreement with, and we find that we actually have a lot in common between Drexel and that institution. And our partnership with the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences became a study abroad location and a faculty research location for other disciplines because of our global classroom in business. So it has also helped to lay the foundation for new experiences. But sometimes the best way to sort of visualize what this looks like is to hear from some examples from our faculty members. So I have our colleagues here who are going to just give a real brief overview of their virtual exchange. And again, we'll break out into some groups so that we can have a more in-depth conversation about the nuances of teaching a virtual exchange course. But before that, let me just mention this. Drexel is a steering committee member and one of the hosts this year of the International Virtual Exchange Conference. This is an older slide, so the dates this year are actually in October. I believe it's October 14th to 16th, so that might be the typo there. But just go to ivecconference.org, or you can certainly email me and I can provide you some information. But this is the largest and most prominent event on virtual exchange. Our last conference welcomed over 350 attendees from 28 countries around the world. So as I mentioned, Drexel is co-hosting this event with the State University of New York system, the SUNY system. It will be a virtual conference this year, with the hopes that by next year we'll be back on the road for an in-person conference. But this year it will be virtual. So if you are interested in attending that conference, please let me know. And as a Drexel affiliate, being part of this workshop, that you are eligible for a $20 discount off of the $150 registration fee. So please contact me if that is something you're interested in, and I can provide you some more information on that. And here is my contact information again, just for any questions